In Luke chapter 22, there's a debate going on. You have to remember that the followers of Jesus were not expecting him to be crucified. They were looking for an earthly Messiah. They were looking for someone to rule Israel. And so they joined this group of people that followed him around. It wasn't just 12, it was thousands that followed him. Hundreds followed him daily, and there were 12 that were extremely close that we know as the apostles, but there were thousands that would go to see Jesus speak and to hear Jesus speak. And they expected, after seeing the miracles that Jesus did, that one day he would just become king of Israel, and that his rule would last forever. That's how they interpreted the Bible prophecy at that time. And so there was an argument. They began to have a discussion. When you come into your kingdom, who's going to sit on your right hand? Who's going to be your right-hand man? Who's going to be your general? Who's going to be your vice president? Who's going to be the top of the command? Who's going to be the top of the food chain? We want to be there. I mean, even James and John got their mother involved in the discussion, coming and asking Jesus, can my boys have a high position in your court when you come into your kingdom? Well, as they were having this discussion, somehow it got to a competition of who's the greatest. Well, who's the greatest of us? Who does the most work for you, Jesus? Who's really the one who you need the most? Who is irreplaceable? And I'm sure the arrogant Peter was involved in that conversation about who's the greatest in the church? Who does the most work? Who do we have to have? And so Jesus, he makes a statement that shocks Peter. He says in Luke chapter 22, verse 31 through 32, he says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. And I prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Peter didn't understand that. Because you see, when Jesus actually even mentioned that he was going to Jerusalem and would die, Peter said, no way. You're not going to die, you're going to become the king. We're going to enter into the throngs of thousands of followers, and they're going to make you king in Jerusalem. And when Jesus says that everybody's going to forsake him, Peter looked at him and said, not me. Everybody else might. James and John, they're kind of wishy-washy, but not me. I'm going to be there to the end. If everybody else forsakes you, if there's nobody else left in the church, I'm going to be there. And yet Jesus looks at him and says, no, ho. You're going to deny me. You're going to deny that you even know who I am. And we all know the story. For just in a few verses later, the man who claimed to be the greatest in the church, the man who claimed that he would never, ever forsake Jesus, the man who said, I will be your right hand and I will be there to the end, is in a courtyard cussing and denying that he even knew who Jesus was. Broken promises. Broken promises that he would be the last man standing. Peter had heard the message. He who denies me before men, I'll deny before my Father who is in heaven, weeping bitterly. As the prophecy is fulfilled that Jesus had spoken that he would deny him. Peter, as he's weeping, I'm sure what he's thinking is, I am nothing more than a liar. I'm a liar. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a loser. I'm a sinner. Today, this message is not for everybody. Some of you could have stayed home if it wasn't for the beautiful singing and the baptism, I guess. Because this message is not for everybody today. You see, this message, though, is for fellow losers, strugglers, for hypocrites, for those who can't ever get it right, for promise breakers, for liars, for those who fail and fall over and over again. It's for those folks. The message this morning is for those folks whose family doesn't even understand why they're so stupid, why they keep lying, why they keep going back. They're the black sheep. You're the heartbreakers. You're the broken and the shipwrecked. You're the ones who bring chaos into your own life and chaos into the life of others. This message is for you. It's for the failures and the losers of the world, the struggling sinners who cannot seem to ever find their footing. Today, this message is for you. You see, some of us are fortunate people. We're blessed. We're faithful. We're good people. I mean, really, honestly, there's some good people that are here. You see, overall, you're kind and you're good. I mean, you would never do what others like us do. You would never drink and get drunk and embarrass yourself and your family. You would never take a needle and put it in your arm. You would never take a drug and sniff it up your nose. You would never watch pornography. You would never have illicit sex. You would never get caught up in this idea of needing to be loved so badly that you go from relationship to relationship. You're beyond that. Oh, you know you're not perfect. You know you have a sinful nature, but you're not like them. You're not like, I hate to say it, us. You're not. You know that you're bent towards sin, that's true, but there are some, let's be honest here, that really struggle with this thing. They struggle more than other people do. And chances are that if you're a good person here today and you don't struggle with those things, chances are it's because you had a good parent. You had somebody who trained you. You see, somehow in our culture today, we somehow think that our environment changes us in this sense that if we are born good people and that we are taught to be bad. But that's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches that children are not born good and are taught to be bad. The Bible teaches that children are born bad and have to be taught to be good. They have to be taught manners. That's why the Bible says, train up your child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. The Bible says you have to train up your child if you're a godly, God-loving person and Christian. And so if we're good today, there's a good chance that you had good parents. You had a good upbringing. And even if you didn't go to church, you had a mom and dad who tried to teach you manners and who tried to teach you values. And so the very goodness that we claim is ours, that we're good people, is probably not even ours at all, but it's simply what was passed down to us from good parents. I remember going to a circus one time, and I saw a man stick his head in the mouth of a lion. Now, I know lions, at least from what I've seen on TV. A lion's natural inclination is to bite that man's head off. But yet, somehow, the reason the lion doesn't bite the man's head off is because the lion has been trained well. It's learned. It's been trained. And the reason we are good is not because our natural inclination is not to be bad. It's because we have been trained well. But there's some of us in here this morning that are not so fortunate. We've had no real home training. We had a daddy that left us when we were kids. We had a mama that was an addict. We had a father that beat us. We had a stepfather that abused us. There are some sitting in this room that were sexually abused, emotionally abused. In this room here today, we didn't have that good upbringing. Some of us don't even know who our father is. And the mother we had was never home or was an addict. And add on top of the emotional scarring and abuse and neglect, there is molestation and rape and beating, betrayal and lies, promises. You remember, some of us remember so well, Daddy saying, I'm going to come pick you up this weekend. And you sitting by the window waiting with your little bags packed, waiting on Daddy to come. But he didn't come, did he? And that scar is still there in your heart. You hear this voice in your head, don't you, that sometimes whispers and other times screams, you're not good enough. You'll never be enough. You're a failure. You're unworthy. You're unloved. Today, this message is for you black sheep who battle daily with addictions and compulsions and obsessions and depression. Can we be honest? Even coming to church for you is a struggle. And living for the Lord is nearly impossible. Most of the time, you feel too guilty and ashamed to even pray, don't you? How many times have you promised God you wasn't never going to do that again, only to do it again, and so finally you said, I'm just not going to pray anymore? I'm just a liar. Maybe for many out there in the world, they say, Christianity works for some. It just didn't work for me. I tried it, man, but I just couldn't do it. I just never could. I never was like them. You're tired of pretending to have it all together. The only thing consistent about your life is your failure as far as the Lord. Constantly making promises and lying to yourself and lying to others. And you don't really mean to. That's not what your heart intends. When you made those promises, you meant to keep them. When you said those things, you were really going to do it. You really want to be a good person. You really want to be a good Christian, but you just continually find yourself messing up. You're like Paul in Romans when he says, there's nothing good that dwells in me, not anything. For though I desire to do what is good, I can't carry it out. And the very things that I know are evil, that's what I'm doing. And I can't seem to stop. Who's going to rescue me from this body of death, this wretched, horrible man that I am? There's two things, that fight against our desire to live for Jesus, our desire to be holy. There's two things that fight against us. First of all, there's this flesh, this desire, this inclination that is bent towards sin. And then it's heightened because of the emotional scarring and the abuse and the neglect and all the things that happen to us as children. This exacerbates it and it heightens it. This sinful inclination that because we have modeled now what our parents have modeled and the generational sin has been passed on to us, sometimes even through our own biology. Because they've discovered that alcoholics and addicts many times are bent toward alcoholism and addiction through their very DNA. It is passed on. You can't even stop it because of the sins of your father and your mother. And you fight against that. And not only do you fight against that, you fight against the demonic, don't you? You hear the voices. You really do. I know. I know of what I speak. There's been times, I'll be honest with you, that I've questioned whether God was real. But I've never questioned whether Satan was. Because there's a lot of times I've felt him a lot more than I felt God. I felt his presence. For us, lessons are hard, man. You see, because we don't learn from experience. We just repeat the same things over and over again. We don't learn. We don't even learn from failure. Do you sometimes, are you one of those like that? Do you sometimes just feel unworthy? That you just quit praying? Just don't want to let God down again, so you quit coming to church? Just decide, well, I can't be hot, so I guess I'll just be cold. Because I know God don't like lukewarmness, so I guess that's just what I am. Strewn behind us are a path of broken promises, aren't they? But here's what Jesus said to Peter, that loser, that hypocrite, that liar, that promise breaker. He said to him, he said, you know, though everybody else leaves you, I'm not. Though everybody else gives up on you, I'm not. There's going to come a day when you're going to be restored. And when you are, then you're going to help your brothers. You see, though everybody else may have given up on you, and though maybe even you are almost at the point of giving up on yourself, God has not forgotten you. God has not given up on you. I say this verse so many times, man, because it is the most important verse to me personally in the Bible, because it speaks to me, because I know what I really am. I know what I am behind this facade I play and behind this role I play. And I know what I really am. I know my struggles. I know that. But this verse, it speaks to me in Romans 5:8. And so I quote it so often. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. God didn't die for you when you were a good person. God died for you when you were a sinner. And he demonstrates that love for you. And when he demonstrates that love for you, and when you see Jesus go to that cross, and you imagine him upon that cross, no, he went there for this reason, to demonstrate that he loves you in spite of you. In spite of you. And God will allow you to be sifted like wheat. He will allow Satan to buffet you. Because in that, it will keep us humble and broken before God. C.S. Lewis says, pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures. He speaks to us in our consciousness, but he shouts in our pain. It's his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. It's when we experience pain, it's when we experience brokenness that we find that God is our only hope. And so even though this is not going to sound very churchy, what I'm about to say, the truth is that God's strength is actually made perfect in your weakness. And that don't really make sense to you. You see, you thought God didn't like you, or God had given up on you, or God was angry with you. But the Apostle Paul, he wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. You would have to say this is a godly man. This is a man that loved Jesus. And Paul said this in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7 through 10. He says, therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. It is when we recognize our weaknesses that we recognize that we don't have any control, that control is simply an illusion anyway. It's when we recognize that we cannot overcome, that we are failures, that we are liars, that we are hypocrites, that we can get on our knees and thank God for His grace that is sufficient for me. And we find that grace perfected when we fall and when we fail and in our weaknesses. And like I said, that doesn't sound very churchy, but that's what the Bible teaches. God works in your failure. God even works in your sin. You see, God knows that when we fail and when we fall, we have to depend upon Him because He shows us just how weak we are. He lets you walk on your own for a while. It's sort of like a baby learning to walk. The mama stands the baby up and says, okay, let's go. And you try to walk, you know, and they fall because they're babies. They don't know yet. And God will let you walk on your own. He'll let you test your muscles. But God is always there to catch you. Let me say this. Your wife may have given up on you. Your husband may have given up on you. Your mother may give up on you. Your father may give up on you. Your kids may give up on you. Your church may give up on you. But God never will. He will never, ever, ever forsake you. And if He does, He's a liar. Because He says, I will never forsake you nor leave you lonely. I remember, and I've quoted this poem many times, but I remember when I was going through some things in my own life. And I started writing, and in this writing that I did, it came out to be a poem, and the poem goes something like this. It's hard to see the beauty when into life blows the cold, when loneliness invades your soul and your heart's dreams begin to fold, when darkness comes upon you that consumes the light of joy, and hope retreats in cowardice as despair rushes in to destroy, with questions racing through your mind for answers never found, believing you were meant to soar, yet you've fallen to the ground. These heartaches come upon us that we do not understand, and we shiver in the winter's wind, reaching out to feel God's hand. Yet somehow we must realize even that which we cannot see helps grow us, and it bestows on us a simple faith that sets us free. Where do you go and seek when the light's so hard to see? Through our sighs, He softly replies, my grace is sufficient for thee. My grace is sufficient for thee. Jesus says to Simon Peter, Simon, Simon, Satan is asked to sift all of you as wheat, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, see, Jesus knew He was going to fall. He knew He was going to fail. He knew He was going to deny Him. But He also knew Peter's heart. You're going to turn back because you have no place else to go. And when you turn back, strengthen your brothers. You know, the people that I have found in my life who have found recovery or victory over compulsive sin or a nagging obsession or depression, the people that I have found that have found peace in that are people who have learned to use their past for purpose. Do you get that? When they have looked back on their past and it's no longer shameful or guilt-ridden, where it's been exposed and everybody knows about it and everybody judges them, but yet they take that past and they use it to help others. And that past that was so shameful, that was so horrible, somehow now, through the grace of God, is used to help other people. Now, some of you in here know my story. And I know we don't have time to listen to my story, but for most of you, I'm a fallen preacher. I'm a guy that was in one of the fastest growing churches in this area that this area has ever seen. I mean, we went from 25 people to 800. Jim will verify that. And that's in small groups. We was the biggest church outside of Memphis, and I was the pastor of this thing. And I fell. I was a closet alcoholic, Chris. Drinking. Passing out. I lost everything. Literally. And when I say I lost everything, I lost everything. I went from a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house to living in a camper in Nashville where I knew nobody. I lost my family. I lost my job. I was put in jail 4 or 5 times. I lost everything. My reputation, my college, my everything I'd worked for, everything I'd strived for, every penny I'd ever made was gone. Everything was stripped away from me in just a matter of weeks. Because of my choices, because of my sin, because I'm a failure and a fraud and a hypocrite and a liar. And when I found recovery and when I began to make my way back home, when I turned back, as Jesus said of Peter, when I turned back, one of the first things I had trouble with, Clyde, was understanding why I did that. Why was I so obsessed with alcohol? Why was I so obsessed with pleasures? Why was I so obsessed with being loved? Why did it matter so much that whether people loved me or not? Why was it never enough? Why could I not be loved enough, BJ? Why? Nobody would love me, man. You know, no matter how many people loved me, it was never enough. And why did I always feel like I fell short of what God wanted? Why did I always feel like that I never pleased God no matter what I did? I baptized 100 people and I was angry every year that I didn't baptize 200. Why? Because God was disappointed in me. Never was enough. Began to get bitter at God. Man, it's like winning the NCAA basketball championship. Well, what are you going to do for me next year? No matter how many people I baptized, no matter how many people joined the church, no how fast the church grew, it was never enough. What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to please you tomorrow, God? Because I believed that God's pleasure was based upon what I did. I didn't realize that God's pleasure was not based on what I did, but God's pleasure was based on who I was. I was His. I was just His child. And so I can remember thinking a lot about why did I have to lose everything? Why did I have to go through what I went through? And then a few years into my sobriety, I was started a recovery church here. We started a recovery group, and there was a boy that had been a youth at my church that I'd been to years and years ago. It had been 20 years since I'd been a pastor, and I'd fallen. And so there was a young boy that came to church here, and he came to our recovery group because he was an alcoholic. And one day I was sitting in there, and I was still ashamed, man. I was ashamed. I mean, here's this kid that watched me, the big-time preacher on TV, growing up preaching, and now he's to hear this preacher talk about how he was an alcoholic and all the lies that his life was based upon. And I made the statement in that room. I said, man, I just don't know why I did that. I don't know why I went through all that, why I let you down like that. And he looked at me and he said these words. He said, you did that. If you hadn't have done that, then you wouldn't be here with me right now. You wouldn't be sitting in this room right now with me if you hadn't went through all that. You see, if you want to find peace with your past, then let your past be used for purpose. Just let God use it. And I want to end by saying this. God has not given up on you. He didn't give up on Peter. He restored Peter. He's going to restore us. And I'm gonna quote you one more poem that I wrote a while back. Your struggle has not gone unnoticed, for I've seen your pain. For I've seen you, watched you climb so high only to fall again. For I was there at your birth, and I saw your first breath. And I will be there at the end when your eyes shall close in death. Never once have I left you alone. I've been with you all the way. Even when you tried to run and hide in the times you went astray. When you won, I silently cheered along with the others who screamed your name. And when you lost, I was still there when you were abandoned and ashamed. Never will I be too far, and never will I sleep. I will carry you along the way when the mountain is far too steep. And when the darkness hides the light, I will show the way. For you, my love, are on my mind every moment of the day. For your struggle has not gone unnoticed, for I've seen your pain. And when you feel forsaken by all the others, just remember to call my name. Would you stand with me? God gave me this message for the lost sheep today, the black sheep, the losers, the habitual sinners, those that are struggling. Today's the day that I want you more than anything else today to feel the love of God, to feel the grace of God, to not give up, to don't stop, because your victory is at hand. You're almost there. And I'm going to ask you in just a moment as we begin this invitation, I'm going to ask you right now to step out from wherever you are. Maybe today you're going to surrender your heart and your life for the first time to Jesus, and you're going to be baptized like Deja was this morning. Or maybe today you're ready to come home. You're like the prodigal son. You've been in the pig pen long enough, and you're ready to turn back, and you're ready to come home to the Father. Today's your day. God brought you here for this. Today's your day. Whatever God is leading you to do, God the Holy Spirit, as He speaks to your heart today, you be obedient. But this altar should be filled today with those who are ready to come back home.